واجعلنا منهم ومن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر آمين يا رب العالمين. ثم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. Once Ramadan gets closer and closer, our ulama and the du'at, they remind us of the ayat of Surah Al-Baqarah in which Allah talks about Ramadan. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. And many of you might expect that today also I will be talking to you about these ayat, but actually that's not what I'm going to do. I will only make an introductory comment about those ayat, and the rest of the time I'll talk to you about another place altogether. I'll be talking to you about the beginning of Surah Al-Jumu'ah. That's what my subject matter today is, the beginning of Surah Al-Jumu'ah. But before I do that, I do want to share something with you about Ramadan from the ayah, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. Allah Azza wa Jalla talks about Ramadan only once. Only once in the entire Quran does Allah talk about the month of Ramadan. And for Muslims all over the world, when we think of Ramadan, the first thing we think about is fasting. The first thought that comes in my head as we think of tomorrow night we're going to pray Taraweeh, that means the day after that is going to be a very long day. And I'm going to be very hungry and thirsty. So we start thinking about food and drink immediately. But it's incredible that in the Quran, when Allah introduced us to the month of Ramadan, He did not introduce the month of Ramadan with fasting. He did not introduce us to this month with Sawm. He said, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. The month of Ramadan is in fact the one in which the Quran was sent down. In other words, the first thing you and I have to think about when we think of Allah, every Muslim feels this. But it's incredible that in the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jalla gave us the key on how to get close to Him in this month. And that key is the Quran itself. It is the book of Allah. So if you really, really want to get close to Allah in Ramadan, if you really want to fulfill the purpose of Ramadan for yourself and I for myself, then the month of Ramadan has to be about the Quran. It has to be about the Quran, for you and for me. And we have to treat it as though we've never had a relationship with the Quran before. You're starting all over again. You're starting all over again. You know, even though I'm not going to talk to you in detail about those ayat of Al-Baqarah, it's incredible that it's a Madani surah, which means the Muslims have been Muslim for a long time. The Sahaba have been Muslim for a long time. And they know about the Quran, and they know about the Akhirah, and they know about these things. Yet in the ayah of Al-Baqarah, when Allah introduced us to Ramadan, He decided also to introduce us to the Quran. Listen to me again. He did not just introduce us to Ramadan, He also introduced us to the Quran. He said, هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْهُدَى وَالْفُرْقَانِ. It is guidance for people. The Quran is guidance for people. You tell me, did the Muslims already know that it is guidance for people? Did we already know that when the ayah came down? We did. We had known that since somebody said Shahada, they knew that the Quran. I'll get to that later. It just keeps spinning in my head every time. And so I want to share that with you by the end of today's talk. Allah Azza wa Jalla revealed in Surah Al-Jumu'ah 3 parts. The first part, Allah talks about the believers. He talks about His messenger and He talks about the believers. The second part, He talks about Bani Israel. He talks about the Jews. And the third part, He talks about the Friday prayer. He talks about the Friday prayer. So there are 3 parts to Surah Al-Jumu'ah. It's very short and it happens very quickly. The first part is about us. It's addressing us directly. And it begins with Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and about the Ummah. Then He talks about Bani Israel. And then He talks about what? What did I say? What was the third part? The Friday prayer. 3 parts. And hopefully, even though I will not be giving you a lecture about the entire surah, at the very least I'll share with you how these 3 things are connected. Because Surah Al-Jumu'ah is one message. It's one khutbah from Allah. If you recite Surah Al-Jumu'ah, it takes 5 minutes or less. You're done. In this short speech, how come there are 3 different parts? They must all be connected. There must be one message. And so, but today is just the first message. My focus is just on that first part. So we begin. This is a Madani surah, which means the surah came down after the Rasul of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam moved to Medina. The mu'minun, there are Muslims who are new to Islam. They're not very strong yet, and their iman hasn't been tested yet. They're the Muslims. We can call them Muslim. So there's the mu'min and there's the Muslim. And then there are those who came into Islam, but they don't have good intentions, or they don't have strong will. So when the test comes from Allah, they fail the test. They fail the test. And these are the munafiqun. May Allah not make us from them. So there's the Muslim, there's the mu'min, and there's also the munafiq. All 3 of them are in Medina. All 3 of these categories are in Medina. But in Makkah, when Rasulullah was in Makkah, then actually the level of iman and the level of conviction in Makkah was very high. So the overall level of iman of the Muslims was much higher in Makkah, and it's now starting to come down in Medina, because it's not only the highest believers, as-sabiqun, ulaika al-muqarrabun. It's not only them. There are some new people too, who haven't gotten the kind of training that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq has, radiallahu anhu, or like Umar, radiallahu anhu. There's some new people. And also there are people who are munafiqun. So overall, the concentration has gotten low. The iman is not as strong. I forgot, I should do this video too. You see, when you see someone else doing it, what happens? You remember yourself. You remember yourself. Is that interesting? I'll tell you something about lectures. I know I'm stopping in the middle of a lecture, but this is important. There are a lot of you here, and there's only one of me. So when somebody walks by, for some reason, a lot of people say, and it becomes so interesting. And when you become so interested, I become interested. So this person's walking by, and I start looking at him too, like, is he going to do a circus trick, or is he going to, what's he going to do? So don't get distracted. It's not going to be that. By the way, this is only interesting if you're listening to a lecture. After the lecture is done, there will be 1,000 people walking by, but you won't look at them. But if you're sitting in a lecture, everything other than the lecture becomes interesting. You will look up at the fan. Wow. Everything else except the lecture. So I know it's hard, but try to concentrate. Everything is doing what? Tasbih. And one of the benefits of that is that now I am constantly being reminded by all the creations of Allah that I should be doing tasbih also. Every ayah is to benefit me. That's one of the benefits of the ayah. Everything does tasbih, why don't you? يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. This is unusual in the Quran. Allah usually mentions 2 of His names at the end of an ayah. Wallahu ghafurun rahim. Wallahu azizun hakim. But here you find 4 names of Allah in a row. Al-Malik, Al-Quddus, Al-Aziz, Al-Hakim. 4 names of Allah. The first name is Al-Malik, which means the king. The second name is Al-Quddus, which means the ultimately pure. Not only the one who is pure, Quddus is also the one who purifies. So there are 2 meanings, the lazim and the muta'addi meaning. The one who is pure and the one who purifies. That is Quddus. I'm giving you simple meanings. What was Al-Malik? Call it out loud. What was Al-Malik? The king. What is Al-Quddus? The pure. The pure and the purifier. The pure and the purifier. Okay, that's Al-Quddus. Then it's Al-Aziz. Al-Aziz is the authority. Someone who has Izzah has 2 things, by the way. Izzah has 2 things in it. Izzah has respect and Izzah has authority. I'll say that again. Izzah has respect and Izzah has authority. So someone who is Aziz is respected, and they also have authority. Now you know these 2 things, they're not always together. Sometimes people have authority but they have no respect. Sometimes the government or a police officer
scared of him. But they don't listen to him because they respect him. You understand? So you can have authority without respect. It's possible. You can also have respect without authority. It could be an old lady that's crossing the street. We respect her because she's older, but she may not have any what? No authority. So you have respect and authority are two different things. But when you call someone Al-Aziz, then you respect them and they have authority. And by extension, you respect. By the way, we'll talk about the Jews in a little bit in the surah, but the Jews used to make fun of the Arabs, the mushrikun of Mecca. And one of the reasons they made fun of them because they didn't know how to read and write. Now Allah Azza wa Jalla is telling us that He can pick the greatest teacher of all human beings, the most knowledgeable human being in human history. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is actually picked from within the Ummiyin. From within the Ummiyin. Which means He honored those people even. He honored those people. He selected those people. It is an honor that Allah gave to the Arabs. And even to know Shakespeare. But you know your husband, and you know he's not Shakespeare. So when he recites a poem like Shakespeare, can you tell that those are not his words?
Yes.
Can you tell? They're coming out of his mouth. And he says to you, listen, I want to tell you something. And he starts reciting some poetry from Shakespeare. And what's the first question you ask? First you ask, what is wrong with you? Or what do you want? But after that, where did you get this from? Where did you learn this from? He says, no. These are my own words. I just said it from my heart. Do you believe that? And what is the proof? This is the thing to think about. What is the proof that these are not his words? You know for a fact these are not his words because you know how he talks. You know the limits of his vocabulary. You know the limits of his English. You understand? And everybody has a speech pattern. If my child memorized a page from a science book and came up to me and told me, Abba, let me tell you something about gravity. And he starts reciting a page from his science textbook. Will I know that those are not his words? That he is following something else? You understand? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam has been among the Ummiyin his whole life. That's why Allah said, Fil Ummiyin. And he is not from the outside, he is from within them. Which is why Allah said, Minhum. Yes? And if he is from within them, do they know how he speaks?
Yes.
Does his uncle, his wife, his friends, do they know how he speaks?
Yes.
When he starts speaking the Quran, immediately, they know that's not his words. That's not how anybody speaks. He's following something else. He's following, you understand? He's doing tilawah. You can tell even if there's no paper in front of him. Rasulullah ﷺ did not receive papers coming down from the sky that he could recite. The angel, alayhi salatu wasalam, Jibreel alayhi salam, would reveal the Quran on his heart. And he would follow from what was given in his heart. على قلبك لتكون من المؤمنين نزل به الروح الأمين على قلبك in Surah Al-Shu'ara. The Ruh al-Amin, Jibreel alayhi salam, of Allah Azza wa Jal is to bring light in the middle of darkness. Quraysh is in the middle of darkness, and Allah Azza wa Jal brings His message there, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ. Then He says, وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. So the messenger reads the ayat onto the people. And then he purifies them. Forget about the entire country. Forget about the entire ummah. Just think about yourself. Aren't there days where you have become so far from Allah that you need to get back and you don't even know how? Where do you begin? I feel so distant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's been so long since I cried in a salah. It's been so long since I felt a connection with Him. How do I feel that connection? So many people ask that question. It is in these ayat that the answer lies. Step 1, يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ. He recites onto them what? His ayat. We have to engage the word of Allah. We have to recite the word of Allah. We have to stop and think about the word of Allah. We have to think about the fact that every time Allah is speaking, He's talking to me. He's talking to me directly. Wallahi, the greatest gift you will ever have in your life is the gift of Allah's speech. Allah chose to speak to you. Allah chose to speak to me in this book. No other religion gives you this kind of direct access to Allah, that Allah is talking to you and me. But some people say, no, but Allah is only talking to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's not talking to me. This is not a book for me. This is a book for the ulama, for the scholars. This is I just recited with tajweed, but I'm not supposed to think about it. Fihi dhikrukum, Allah says. In it, Allah is talking about you. That's literally what He says. In it is your mention. It's about you. First thing, you engage this book. First thing we have to do in every Muslim community in the world, and we have to do it constantly, is revive this sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What is that sunnah? Yatlu alayhim ayatihi. Now you tell me, there are millions of us all over the world, and billions even. We get together in Ramadan and we stand and we listen to the Quran being recited. But the vast majority of us have no idea what just happened. No clue. And I don't blame you. But I do say, I will blame you if you don't care. It is not your fault that you don't know. That's not your fault. Allah gave this messenger in a nation that was what? Ummiyin. Being ummi, not knowing the words, not knowing how to read and write is not your fault. That in Surah Al-Jathiyah or in Juz Amma, he does not know. No way. We can do that. It is possible. We can do it within 10 years or even less. But we have to care. We have to actually become part of this effort. And that is not one person's job. Every single member of this ummah, you and I are responsible to educate ourselves and educate our families. Educate our children. They have to learn what this book means. This book came so we can think about it. Inna anzalnahu Qur'anan Arabiyyan la'allakum ta'qilun. We gave this in Arabic. We sent down an Arabic Quran so you can think, you can understand. Allah keeps saying that to you and me. I gave you this Quran so you can understand, so you can understand, so you can understand. And we say, no. You gave me this Quran so I can learn tajweed and recite and listen to a CD in my car. That's it. That's the end of it. Tajweed is important. Recitation is important. But those are all secondary. As a matter of fact, you know why tajweed is important? Tajweed is important. I will not let that happen to my kids. I will start learning today, even if I'm 80 years old, even if I'm 90 years old, because the month of Quran is coming. The messenger will recite the ayat onto the people. Now you tell me, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would recite the ayat onto the Quraysh, did the Quraysh understand the Quran? Did they understand the Quran? Yeah, they did. This is a very big deal. There are stories in the Quran where kuffar, non-Muslims, haters of Islam, they heard the ayat of Allah and they started crying. The kafir started crying. Today my problem is I'm not a kafir, alhamdulillah, and I'm listening to the word of Allah and nothing moves. Nothing moves. That's a tragedy. The Quran got more of a reaction from a kafir back then than it gets from me today. That's a problem. That's an emergency. Yatlu alayhim ayatihi wa yuzakkihim. The second thing the messenger, this is his formula. You have to make the Quran common. The mother is teaching her son. She's teaching her daughter. The husband is teaching his wife. The wife is teaching the husband if she knows more. The family is becoming a family of the book of Allah. You know? They're trying to find every opportunity they can to further their understanding of it. They're memorizing it. They're studying its tajweed. They're learning its meaning. They're studying its tafsir. Because this book is like food for them. Just like every few hours you need food. Allah makes you and me go back and make salah. And the longest part of salah is what? It's qiyam. And in qiyam, what do you recite? You recite Quran. How can I not have a direct relationship? He says, وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. And when we talk about the messenger purifies them, usually it's not broken up like this, but I'll break it up like this for you guys. There are two parts to it. There are two parts of purification. There's the purification of the mind, and there's the purification of the heart. Once again, there are two kinds of purification. What are the two kinds? Purification of the mind and purification of the heart. The Quran says the messenger purifies them. What does that mean? He purifies their mind and he purifies their heart.
They lie because I'm their teacher and I destroy them in class. If I'm your teacher, every 2 minutes I will ask you a question. Hey, Abdul Kareem, tell me the answer. Fatima, tell me the answer. What is the answer? Why don't you know? Pay attention. A teacher makes sure that the student what? Understands, learns, and the teacher tests the student. Then the teacher fails the student. Then the teacher retests the student. Then the teacher humiliates the student. Then the student asks the teacher and asks again, and the teacher answers again. It's back and forth and back and forth. Is teaching easy? No. Teaching is not easy. Teaching, do you have to have a relationship when you're teaching? Absolutely. And in that relationship, you need two people that are very serious. The teacher is very serious and the student is very serious. But when Allah said, يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ, He reads the ayat onto them. He just reads the ayat. Is that a teacher-student relationship? No. He's just reading the ayat, just like I'm reading the ayat to you right now. And hopefully, as I'm reading these ayat to you, what might happen to some of you? You might start thinking differently about Ramadan. You might start, something in your heart might change. But that's not because of me. That is because of the ayat. That's because of the ayat. And now that you become serious, you might decide to go into a class and take a teacher and become serious and start learning. But you would never become serious until the ayat were read onto you and they changed something inside you. We expect the entire ummah to learn. We cannot expect them to learn. We just have to give them the ayat first. Then they have to experience a change, some tazkiyah first. That tazkiyah will motivate them to want to what? Learn. By the way, wallahi, this is the process I went through and so many of you sitting in the audience have gone through. The biggest evidence of this is not the ayah. The biggest evidence of this is your own life. Your own life. You weren't serious at one point. Having you sit in an hour-long lecture, 20-minute lecture, forget it. Are you kidding me? You have an annoying cousin who keeps sending you Nouman Ali Khan links and you keep erasing them. This guy's so annoying. Why does he have so many videos? And one of you has been dragged by your cousin and you're sitting in the back waiting to leave. I understand, totally. Because you're not a student. You know what happens when you make progress though? So you were not serious before. Allah put something in your hearts. You heard some message, somebody recited the ayat onto you, and something was cleansed inside of you by Allah's permission, so you became serious. You know what happens to people? When they become serious, they think everybody else should become serious too. Everybody else should become like them. And you start getting angry at everybody else. You're walking to the masjid, astaghfirullah, these people don't even go and make salat. It happens or no? It happens. The idea of you going through a process, you forget that you went through a process. When you look at other people, you expect them to get exactly to the same level as yourself or better. You can't. This is the process of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. By the time you get to become serious, you need wisdom. You need wisdom. Because in order to deal with people properly, what do you need? Wisdom. You don't just need knowledge. Sometimes you gain a lot of knowledge, but you have no wisdom in how to deal with people. What does the messenger teach people? He just teaches them the book and says, you're done? That's all you need? You just need the book? Here's the sharia, finished? No. وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. This is on the inside. You have to recite the ayat onto people. Share the word of Allah with people. And you watch, they will change. They will change. I don't mean to share this with you because I want to show off. Wallahi, I do not want to show off. But I want to share a personal story with you. I was just talking to this with Brother Harun, who's traveling with me, and his family also. Maybe about 20 years ago, when I was in high school, I had no Muslim friends. None of my friends were Muslim. My best friend was a Hindu. And this Hindu friend and I, when we finished school, every 2-3 days, we used to go to McDonald's. So my Hindu friend and I are sitting in McDonald's, and he's a Jain, so he's very strict about his diet. So he would order the Big Mac, but he's a vegetarian. So he would say, I want the Big Mac without the Mac. So that's how he would order it. Now, at the time, I really didn't care about halal and haram. I didn't care about salah. I didn't care about the Quran. I didn't know any of this. I didn't care about any of it. But I still knew that I'm a Muslim. So when he used to order the Big Mac without the Mac, I used to say, well, this guy watches his diet. I should watch my diet. Okay, I'll have the fish sandwich. Like I wouldn't order the Big Mac or the chicken sandwich because I don't know if it's halal or not. So I would order the fish sandwich. And we used to sit and talk, just hang out, talk about stupid things high school kids talk about, you know? But you know what? If one of you walked into the restaurant and you saw me and my friend sitting there talking about ridiculous things, would you think that guy over there, the guy who looks really stupid, that guy, 20 years from now, he'll be in Malaysia talking to about 10,000 people about the Quran. Would you think that? This kid, astaghfirullah, lost cause. Is he even Muslim? Look at him. Look at him. It is so easy for us to underestimate other people. So easy for us. We don't know what Allah will turn someone into. We don't know what Allah will use them for. We don't know. Our job, يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ يُزَكِّيهِمْ. For yourself and for others. And for those who become serious, sure, they should learn the book. They should learn wisdom. But not everybody will be a talibul ilm. It's okay. It's okay. It'll happen in time. لَتَرْكَبُنَّ طَبْقًا عَنْ طَبَقٍ. Now Allah Azza wa Jal says this beautiful formula for the entire Muslim ummah to understand. There are some people in your family who are very serious, masha'Allah alayhim. There are some people in your family, they're barely holding on to Islam. They're barely holding on to Islam. And you have to have the wisdom on how to deal with each one. You can't deal with all of them the same way. Some of you have children. Some of your children, masha'Allah, and some of your children, astaghfirullah. It's the case. It's a reality, isn't it? And so you cannot deal with them the same way. You cannot tell the child who is not interested in salah and he's going out late at night, why can't you be like your brother? Why can't you be more like this? You're yelling at him and telling him, تعلم الكتاب, learn the book, take it seriously, memorize. A lot of times our kids ask, why am I memorizing Quran? I don't want to memorize Quran. I don't want to memorize it. You're like, astaghfirullah. You don't want to memorize Quran? Let me take you to the shaykh, he'll recite some ayat on you. You know, fix you. Because you're not memorizing Quran. These kids don't know. Because we haven't shared a message with them. You cannot expect them. Wallahi, you cannot expect them. They don't think of the Quran as something they love. They think of the Quran as something that is just telling them that they're really bad and they're probably going to go to hell anyway. That's the attitude people have developed. We've done this to the Book of Allah. The Book of Allah is far more beautiful, and we've done an ugly job of presenting it. We messed up. And an entire generation of young people is thinking, you know, when I read the Quran, all I think of is, maybe I'm a munafiq and I'm going to Jahannam. That's it. SubhanAllah. This book came to give all of humanity hope, and today Muslims don't even find hope in it. That's a tragedy. That's a serious tragedy. Now this ayah, the Rasul ﷺ was given this mission to... Allah says, these are the Quraysh, right? The Quraysh are Arabs. And the people in Medina, the people of Yathrib are also Arabs. And they are the ones that the Prophet is working on, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Now in this ayah, Allah says, there are akharina minhum. There are other people other than these people.
There are other nations, other races, other ethnicities, other regions of the world, other continents, other countries that are not Arab. لَمَّا يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ. They have not joined them yet. Allah did not say they have not joined them. He said they have not joined them yet. Yet. The Malays haven't joined the Ummah yet. The Indians haven't joined the Ummah yet. The Africans haven't joined the Ummah yet. The Turks haven't joined the Ummah yet. The Uyghurs haven't joined the Ummah yet. The Europeans haven't joined the Ummah yet. Because the ayat are coming in Medina. None of that has happened yet. We, most of you that are sitting here that are not Arab, are talked about in this ayah. We're talked about in this ayah. وَآخَرِينَ مِنْهُمْ لَمَّا يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ. There are other than the Arabs. They haven't joined them yet. When you fly into Malaysia, and I think about the fact, how far away from the Arab land is this place? And its islands that are way out into the sea. And Islam reached over there. Who would think Islam would get all the way into these remote islands and people would be saying, La ilaha illallah. Wallahi, I almost cried. We were in Terengganu. I was in the hotel room. I look in the table next to my bed and there's a copy of the Quran. I live in the United States. Every time you pull out the desk, there's a copy of the Bible. I see a copy of the Quran. I almost start crying, man. وَآخَرِينَ مِنْهُمْ لَمَّا يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ. We don't realize you and I are the fulfillment of Allah's promise in this ayah. You and I are saying La ilaha illallah because Allah made that promise to His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you and I are only people of La ilaha illallah for no other reason that somebody before us understood this formula. يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ. Somebody who came before us, who understood that when you go to these lands, you will recite the book of Allah, and Allah will purify people who have any goodness in them. Then you can teach them the book and the wisdom, and they will come flock into this deen. They will flock into this deen. That is the favor of Allah. He gives it to whoever He wants. The La ilaha illallah that I say, that you say, is a gift of Allah. It is a favor of Allah. He gave it to you and me. Wallahu dhul fadl al-azim. And Allah is the possessor of great favor. You know what that means? That Allah's favor did not end with you. Now it's time for you to take Allah's gift and give it to others. Give it to your family. Give it to Muslims and give it to non-Muslims. The Muslims today are far from Quran, we have to bring them back. If you're far from the Quran, you have to make your way back. We have to develop this, and this is the month to do it. If there's 1 month where you can hit restart, all the mistakes of your past, forget about what happened. Forget about what you did this last year. Forget about what you did your whole life. This is the time to start all over again. It's just me and the word of Allah, because I recognize Allah Azza wa Jal made me among those who the Sahaba made dua for. The Sahaba made dua for. How do I know that? The Sahaba are listening to these ayat. There are not that many of them. There are not that many of them. And Allah tells them there are other people coming. There are other people that haven't joined you yet. Ya Allah, bring them soon. Ya Allah, protect those people that haven't joined us yet. SubhanAllah. The Sahaba are waiting for us. They're waiting for us. SubhanAllah. That's this ummah. That is this ummah. So I'm sincerely making dua for myself and for all of you that this month, this coming month, it's always been a month where I pray, it's always been a month where I recite Quran, but this time I'm not only going to pray and I'm not only going to recite the Quran, this month I'm going to try to understand this Quran. I'm going to learn something more about this Quran. I'm going to share what I learned with my family. I'm going to talk to them about this Quran. I'm going to try to develop a new love for this Quran and share that love with my loved ones for this Quran. And Allah will put barakah in all of
your efforts because you're doing it in the month of the Quran. In the month of the Quran. As I leave you, I'll tell you one last thing about the ayah of Ramadan again. The ayah is شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس. You know, the Nahwiyun, the grammarians, they debated about this ayah. They said this ayah could have two meanings. One meaning is هدى للناس is actually about the Quran. The Quran is guidance for all of humanity. The other is شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن is مركب ناقص. I'm sorry, I'm getting technical. I'll simplify in a second. And هدى للناس is actually the khabar, which means the month of Ramadan in which the Quran came down, the month itself is guidance for humanity. The Quran is guidance for humanity and the month is guidance for humanity. What that means is, if you're looking for guidance, if you're looking for change, and you're looking to share this beautiful message with loved ones and friends who are not even Muslim, this is the month to share it in, because the month itself is guidance for humanity. The month itself is guidance for humanity. May Allah Azza wa Jal give all of us the rizq of Ramadan. May Allah accept all of our ibadat and all of our worship and all of our fasting. May Allah make the fasting easy for every single one of us. May Allah Azza wa Jal make this month a month in which we increase our love for the Quran and are able to increase the love for our entirely for the Book of Allah. May Allah make this month a month in which we have the courage and the correct words and the wisdom to be able to share something about the ayat of the Quran with our non-Muslim friends and even with our Muslim family that has become far from the deen. That may Allah soften their hearts in this month and may Allah make us a means for getting the word of Allah to them. May Allah Azza wa Jal include all of us among those who earn the shafa'ah of His beloved Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and may Allah Azza wa Jal overlook all of our mistakes. As I leave you, I just want to share a personal feeling with you as I go. This is not just my feeling, it's also the feeling of my colleagues. I traveled a lot, but I traveled to the Muslim world very little. And so when I travel to this wonderful place, when I travel to Malaysia, every time, I feel this new love for the Ummah. You guys don't even know what you have. You don't even know what you have. When you're just driving down the street and you see a giant masjid, you just see a masjid in the middle of the street, you don't know. That's not something you should take for granted. You know, if Allah did not want this to happen, that would have been a giant temple. There would have been a giant statue inside. And you would have been, and I would have been worshiping inside that temple. But Allah decided that we should be blessed with Islam. That we should be given this truth. You know? So we should be grateful for what we have. I just get this surging love for the Muslims here. SubhanAllah. May Allah protect you people. May Allah protect you and your families. And may Allah make you an example of how a Muslim community can progress and be modern and be technologically savvy and economically strong, and at the same time hold on to every single principle of their deen. And they can live in this dunya without compromising anything from their deen. May Allah make you an example for that, not just for the rest of the ummah, but for all of humanity. Barakallahu li wa lakum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much to Ustadh Nouman Ali Khan to share with us the gems from Surah Al-Jumu'ah as the reminder for us to get ready for Ramadan and whatever